in the studio with me is Nana Peltier. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for asking. And how are you today?
I'm very well. We're doing better than the ANZ Bank in Australia. They are saying that they're going to have a hit to their profits, and this is, of course, because of all the, I guess, the recompense that will be paid to customers and others as a result of the Royal Commission there. Now, don't tell me that we have to feel sorry for them.
No, I'm not going to say that.
Good.
In fact, the review is still ongoing. So what they have done is they have set aside $374 million for what they already know about. Now, what that doesn't mean that they don't know that there's more out there. We don't know yet how far that's going to go. But that Australian commission into the misconduct into the banking and financial services sector is still going on, and we can expect it to go on for some time. We've already seen some fallout there with the Commonwealth Bank. They've been fined. The AMP are up for some fines. They've set aside some money. And as well, the ANZ have set aside another $55 million to cover their legal fees for the year ending September 30th. So that's just last financial year for them. Right. And we can expect to see a lot more. Now, there were some other costs. They're warning that their costs all up, they'll have another bit, $767 million of write-offs, not just from that Royal Commission, not just for legal costs, but also for the write-down in the value of some old software and some other technology issues that they have to deal with. So overall, quite a lot of expense there for the ANZ Bank in Australia.
Yes, it must be, I suppose, emphasised as you're doing so that that's in Australia. But I mean, these banks are very closely linked to the banks here.
Well, they're owned by them, of course. Many of our banks are. The four big ones are. Yeah.
And we've been told, of course, that their operations are completely separate. But I mean, in terms of management, you do see a lot of comings and goings with people that are running the show. I mean, is there anything else about what sort of inquiries might be done here?
Well, there's an inquiry going on right now here in New Zealand from the Reserve Bank and the Financial Markets Authority. They're looking at the banking sector here, but they're not just looking at what they're doing exactly. They're looking at the culture that underlies the bank. They're not just looking at what sort of specific concerns they may have about some of their dealings with customers, but what is the culture? They're interviewing frontline staff, and they're going around not just the large banks, but the smaller ones too, and they're looking at the whole piece. It's a little different from a Royal Commission in this case, but nonetheless, so far they haven't found anything that they disclosed, but we are expecting to hear a more in-depth report from these regulators this month, so we'll see what happens with that.
Good. Okay, more to come on that. Now, we've heard a lot last week about this stoush between the NZX and one of its shareholders.
Elevation Capital.
There's a war of words that's...
It's more than a war of words, I'd say. It's more a matter of, look, we think that you could be doing things better. Elevation Capital... It's a fund manager too. They own 2.3% of NZX, but they're not alone in criticizing the market operator. We've had a lot of criticism, and the NZX, to be fair, responded to this criticism with a strategic report that they put out last year, and they've been working to implement it. And amongst the things they described was to develop global alliances as part of being a regional operator to strengthen the opportunities for listed companies here in New Zealand to take part in other markets, say Singapore or the NASDAQ or the Shanghai market, etc. Well, Elevation Capital say that this isn't acceptable, that this is costly, and where is it going to lead? What they want to see is the NZX getting stuck back to its core. They want it to spin off its fund management business into a private, or rather another entity, which would potentially be listed on the exchange as well, giving shareholders two bangs for their buck, so to speak. But the NZX looked at their report and said, we don't like this. But there's something else that happened in between all of what's going on last week. Well, it turns out that Elevation Capital sent a private message to the NZX saying, look, we'll stop publicly criticizing you if you put 3 of our nominees on your board and you hire back some guy who used to advise you. And they were like, we're not doing that. This is outlandish. And they've come out and publicly said, forget it, this is crazy, and how could a small shareholder like Elevation with just 2.3 come out and do this?
That puts a real dent in the criticism then, doesn't it?
Well,
really?
It kind of does undermine it somewhat, yeah. And the other thing is, Elevation Capital, we went back to them and they said they were going to prepare a written response. Well, we haven't heard back from them today, and they didn't respond to our request for an interview this afternoon. So,
Otherwise, how are the markets doing?
Well, not so good. As a matter of fact, I don't have a lot of good news today, do I? No, sorry. Well, anyways, look, not least of all, our dollar fell over the weekend just because of some, the strength of the U.S. economy, the concerns about trade, and we're under pressure. Some people are expecting our Kiwi to come down to, even around 62 cents. So you can expect the downward pressure will continue. So in that vein, we were steady today, though, at 64.4 U.S. cents, 91.2 Australian, and 49 British pence. But our top 50 index, this is our share market, is certainly under pressure, and we're seeing a lot of red in Asia right now. The Australian market, the ASX 200, was down more than 1%. We were down 0.75%, so not quite as much, down 68 points to 9,147. But look, Asia's not looking very good, and this is partly because of the Chinese government putting, releasing the amount of funds that financial institutions have to hold, so as to increase liquidity in the market. Instead of really making the market feel more secure, it made them feel more nervous. And so the markets are really concerned that this trade war is escalating in China.
Right, wow. Thank you very much for the update, the very latest there from Nona Pelletier with the Business News.